Welcome, Wargamers, to the ashen mists of dark cities, because today we are talking about Anvilgard as we continue to dissect the lore behind one of the Mortal Realms' most dynamic cities in terms of its evolution of story over time. This video is based on a few different lore books, from the main AOS game to the game's supplement, or role-playing game supplement, Soulbound, produced by Cubicle 7. It's a wonderful game, and they have a ton of resources that really bring the Mortal Realms to life in ways that Games Workshop publications generally don't. And so today we are going to be exploring what it is like to arrive in the city of Anvilgard as if you were doing so. Like last video, we had kind of an exposition on the evolution of the city from a more third-person perspective. But since we are covering a role-playing game, we're going to talk about it as if you are arriving in the city fresh off the boat. It's a port city after all. It's probably the easiest way to get there, by skyship or boat. And so we're gonna set the mood a little bit. This is going to contain zero spoilers, so if you are a game master trying to set up a game in the city of Anvilgard, this will be the perfect thing to get your players climatized to the area and with a little bit of understanding. It's all local gossip that they would be able to pick up. Again, no spoilers. Before we kick off into that though, I just want to say, if you're looking for any kind of gaming supplies, whether it's stuff for Soulbound or Age of Sigmar, please consider checking out my link tree in the description down below. There's a bunch of ways to save money through those links, and just added is a link to my Baron of Dice custom dice. So if you want to roll sixes 1/6 of the time, every time, hook yourself up with some 2+ stuff dice. This is actually one of the best ways to support me, my wife, our cats, the whole channel. And your guys' support means the absolute world to me, so thank you so much. So as I said, today we're going to move into the more tactile sense of what it's like. And if you and your party arrive in Anvilgard, as I said, most likely it's going to be by a sea vessel. And so let's tackle what that is like. Now, before the bridge to land even drops, you will know that you have arrived at Anvilgard. The smell of a deeply salty ocean is going to fill your nostrils. There's birds cawing, swooping, and pooping everywhere, like all waterside birds are wont to do. And one of the things you'll notice very quickly is that even in, high noon, whenever it's the brightest part of the day, visibility is exceptionally difficult and inconsistent here. It's sort of a weird twilight. And this is because two things are happening at the same time that are assaulting your senses. The first is that there is a super thick mist that wraps around the entire region. Like, certainly the city itself, but the entire region. Everything has kind of that wet, dank smell to it. If you've ever been to like an old fishing town, that kind of thing. There's lots of moss. And that makes sense, right? There's a lot of mist and steam or whatever. It's the water's edge in the realm of fire. But the other thing you notice, intermingled with that mist, is ash. You see, the jungle that lies just around the land side of Anvilgard is so thick, and it grows so aggressively that it is regularly scorched just to push it back so the city can expand. It's kind of like Hammerhall Gyarian in that same sense of like they're constantly fighting against nature to like carve out a place just for themselves. And they do this, like I said, with tons of fire and also a bunch of basically plant killer, fungicide, all this kind of stuff. And what all of this means is that Anvilgard is shrouded in a thick ashen mist smoke. It would probably make your skin feel really gross if you were outside sweating in it for too long. And you can only ever see the barest outline of Hish above you so that you know it's day. It's a very gloomy type place. Also keep in mind for you on your adventures is that it's also, like I said, inconsistent. Sometimes the mist will just part and you have clear line of sight down a whole corridor or something like that, and then a whole wall will just flood right back in and blind out all the fighters or something. Like there's just a bunch going on, and so this can happen on a moment-by-moment basis. Now, walking around the immediate area off of your ship, you're going to notice a few things that seem pretty typical to you, right? You're going to have your markets, your ship repairs, bankers, military personnel, some inspectors going through the cargo and stuff like that. Right? Business is happening, which means life is happening in some sense. There's society, there's structure, there's order. And in fact, there are a ton of unique shops, services, and taverns in the city. I think I counted somewhere in the vicinity of 45 different locations in this city, based just on the visitor's guide to Anvilgard. And really, I'm just going to touch on a few favorites here. But back to our city exploration. Moving deeper into Anvilgard, right, you're getting a little bit past the initial docks where it's kind of the same no matter where you are. You start to see some of the things that make the city a bit more unique. You have the residential areas, which are cramped buildings built on top of one another. There's patrols of free guild regiments. There's privateers keeping a dubious eye on anyone they didn't recognize. These are essentially, just imagine a bunch of dark elves just standing around, just watching everybody. Just always watching. There's always eyes on you in Anvilgard. You'll also notice a procession of priestesses of the Daughters of Cain walking down the streets. They're constantly doing their own religious rites, rituals, displays of faith, ceremonies going to and from the temple. There's a lot going on. At every few street corners, you'll see what looks like an obsidian statue. But as you get closer, you start to see the micro movements and it dawns on you, this is a Stormcast Eternal. Specifically, of the Anvils of Heldenhammer's Stormhost, and in fact, one of the largest buildings on the horizon of the city is the Stormkeep that protects it. Stormkeep basically meaning their fort. The Anvils of Heldenhammer are a revered fighting force, made of souls plucked from the realm of death to be reforged, and it is an exceptionally uneasy tension between the populace and these demigods, but they kind of rely on each other. The Stormcasts are the defenders of the grander sense of order. So they don't like the fact that Morathi took the city. Grugni kind of diffused the whole argument. Stormcast still have some kind of presence within the city to help them defend it, rather than just letting it fall to chaos. But that's just to introduce you to some of that weird tension. But the idea is, the way it's presented in this book is that it doesn't seem real until it starts moving and talking to you and you realize, oh, this is a Stormcast. That's creepy. And let's say the Stormcast walks away from you, but that doesn't matter because your attention is stolen away by a noise coming directly above you in a most curious sight. The flying dirigibles of the Caradhran overlords are towing the carcass of a colossal monster deeper into the city. The dead animal's sad eyes looking down on the city as it passes over. And in fact, Anvilgard's main moneymaker is the possession and trade of food. Bunch of big monsters out in these seas, and so Black Ark Corsairs, Caradhran overlords, they will go hunt and fish, bring them back to be butchered in the city, and then sold and distributed throughout the rest of the cities. Not only that, it's a distribution center, so there's like wheat and seeds that are coming in from other places to then be farmed here. It's a big hub of trade for that kind of specifically vital resource of food. Now remember that while Aqua Guiaranis is still the currency in Soulbound, just like it is everywhere, remember that these are rich traders from exotic places. A unique item or treasure might carry more weight to them than standard coin. So while you as players have money, it's probably easier or more likely that you can find something somebody wants in the city that isn't money. Now, as we continue our walk through the city, you're a little bit got your senses back after seeing the giant dead animal float above you, but let's say you start walking down the different corridors and you'll start to notice some of the highlights of the city's defenses. And what you learn about the city of Anvilgard as you kind of walk its length is that this is kind of a mean place that's carved out of rough stone. On one side is the ocean, the Seared Sea. It's patrolled by an unreasonable amount of privateers, so think morally gray pirates. They're not evil, but they're morally gray. Different free guild ships. They're going on concentric defensive maneuvers to ensure that nothing creeps in from the sea. One of the stories there is here about a corn army just rolling in very silently on a boat and just sneaking in and pouncing. That's kind of a neat idea. The city itself, it's really easy to tell that the architecture here is very unique. I'm going to call Anvilgard prison chic. Everything is steel reinforced, covered in like stone slabs. Almost every building, from administrative office to high-end residential areas, they're all built to be fortified. And this has to do a lot with its early origins as a frontier town, right? They had to repel chaos armies that came by a lot, stuff that wouldn't crumble or erode too easily when it came to being near the highly salty seawater or the destructive jungle trying to constantly grow into the foundations of your city. Surviving just the weather, I mean, just being on the ocean shore, weather gives you different challenges than someone who's, deep in the continent or something like that. But regardless, the city seems jagged and cold because of its architecture. Then outside the city, right on the opposite side of the sea, is the jungle. A natural feature that grows so aggressively it has to be pruned back daily with fire and poison constantly. But remember that this also provides a defense of its own. It's a little bit suffocating, but it is a defense. Yes, the city has big reinforced walls, but it takes a very specific type of army to be able to walk through the thickness of the jungle that we're talking about here, arrive at those walls, and still be ready to fight, right? It's both an impediment to the city and its best natural defense. Now, one of the things we see from Cities of Sigmar, kind of, I guess, design sense, is they often build concentric rings as additions. So you have your original founding spot, they'll build the initial walls around that, and then later on at some point they'll build an additional ring of walls outside of that to expand, add new space. And which of those concentric rings, I guess you want to say, within the city, there's just different businesses, different opportunities, people to talk to, levels of power. Of course, the closer to the center you get is typically where you're going to have the richer people. But those are all the things you'll kind of experience as you begin to step into Anvilgard. And so from here, I'm going to hand things over to your GM for nudges, guidelines, etc. And in my next video, I'm going to tackle my favorite locations in Anvilgard and present them. But remember, like I said, there's like 45 or something. There's a ton. So be sure to go around, ask questions, ask for ideas on where to go, talk to NPCs. And then we'll begin exploring the setting more as I crack into the Shadow in the Mist campaign. Now, really quickly, I want to end this video like I end all of them by asking the question, why is this cool, right? Why is it cool to walk through the streets of Anvilgard? And when it comes to the vibe of a place, the sensory aspect is what it's at for me, right? And that comes up here a lot very naturally. I used to live in a beach town. If you haven't, I envy you. It was just that tang of salt water, the seagulls, the smell of dead fish, there's sand everywhere. It just, having that description conjures a lot to me of the sensory aspect. The mists, the ash, they all add to that. And I hope our little walkthrough laid out the kinds of things you'll be able to see on a walk, right? The businesses, cramped quarters, and just kind of painted a picture for you. A few things that I felt it was kind of difficult to emphasize from sort of a first-person perspective is the idea that you are always being watched. This place is run by a criminal enterprise. The Black Scale Coil is what they're called. There are spies both for the military and just private crime operations. Opportunities will present themselves in a binary. You can help the guard to get public recognition, or you can do things for a crime lord in secret, and they'll get you to your goals, but you better not tell anybody. And I love that. I love the different levers you can pull, because the hardiness and the survival aspect and that kind of nobility of just carving out a place that is so untenable and making a life there is so respectable. But you contrast that with, this place seems real frickin' shady, right? There's just a lot of dark corridors. It thrives on people literally not being able to see what you do. And it's all that stuff makes it just very, I don't know, kind of dark town with a lot of like inferences. So you and your GM can take it in a lot of different directions. You can keep stuff very light and innocent and just have chaos armies attack, because they do. Or you can talk about the corruption within the city, because there's no shortage of it. So in terms of setting a hotbed of activity for you and your party to explore using the various skills that you have, I think it's fantastic. And I hope that you will enjoy the rest of this series as we explore the different locations and then some of the adventures that you can go on throughout the campaign. Again, there's never going to be any spoilers to the story, just stuff to get you set up. Kind of offload some of the work for the GM and give folks something to listen to so they can be thinking about it throughout the week and kind of get themselves in the headspace. If you like these kinds of videos and you want more stuff for Soulbound and getting, folks ready for role-playing game content, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm happy to do that for you. And I look forward to seeing you all in my next video. Thank you so much for listening. Happy wargaming.